Lightning talks. Series of short talks, no more than 5 minutes. If you are asking questions, if there is space in the time frame, can you please stand up and speak slowly and loudly? The ambient microphone should pick you up because we haven't got time to run around with a microphone to get to you. Starting off, Steve's going to talk to us about, I guess, floating point.
Hi, folks. So this is an explanation. The takeaway is the bottom right-hand side, the thing in red. So I'll start with the problem. We know that floating point can be tricky. In particular with floating point, we have a concept of rounding. Because we've got rounding, we lose information. Top left, we have an inequality that should look like it should be equal. Now, changing the order of operations in floating point can affect the results as a consequence, again, of the rounding. So we see a different order of operations at the top. I was young, foolish, and naive, and I thought big O2 and -G would not affect the order of operations with floating point normally in a C compiler. However, according to the C standard, it is permissible for the compiler to contract certain floating point operations together, providing it improves the accuracy. Now, one person's idea of improves might be another person's idea of disaster when floating point is involved. So also, more disturbingly, how the floating point operations are contracted can vary between architectures and tool chains. So let's say we're building Debian, for example, and the build D, we might have failures in certain architectures and passes in others. There are software mechanisms to change contraction with Pragma, but if anyone is facing a floating point ambiguity between architectures and tool chains, and if big O1 makes the problem go away, it might be worth looking at that build flag. At least one package has been fixed with that flag. From my side, and I know we're going to get into a freeze soon and start fixing these things, please keep this one in mind. That's my talk. Any questions? I'm happy with that. We'll set up for the next one.
Good. So, hi, I'm Roland. I'm working on the live builds. I have a newbie for Debian kind of topic. It is a request for help, and I know that is strange. So, what do I request? I have been working on live builds since a few years now. And what happened is that I made the code more stable. That means that on release day, people have more time for beer and pizza, which is good. Then the builds got reproducible. So you have bit for bit identical. You know that every time you rebuild your live image, you do it at your computer, and Debian does it. You have an identical checksum. Let's hope that the checksum is strong enough that it is exactly identical, so it's not MD5. It's set to 256 checksum that matches, so that works perfectly fine. Then, when that was done, all these images are generated automatically again. At some point, Steve turned them off because they weren't reliable enough. Then it's now working again, at least for the AMD 64. I'm coming, as Ima already told. But just creating live images is not worthful enough. So I want to know that they actually work. And work is not like boot and that's all. No, we do a little bit more than booting. For GNOME and KDE. But if you're using any of the 5 other desktop environments that are mentioned there. And I've seen 2 more merge requests in task cell for yet another list of desktop environments. If you care about them, please raise your hand later and help in actually making sure that your favorite desktop environment is working as you intended it to be. Or perhaps if you're using a Debian blend, I was talking to Andreas yesterday, and he said, we have so much software, how do we know for sure that everything is working as intended? We have auto package test, but if you do Debian Met as a blend, or Debian Junior, or anything else, Debian Games, make sure that the whole thing is working as you intend. And for that, you can use a pre-existing system, which is called OpenQA, that boots your system and make sure that it works. And that's all there is at the end. So we have in OpenQA a test called start-stop, and that is implemented such that you take your program name, you start it up, it checks if the startup screen of your program is there. Then it says either Alt F4 or the X at the upper right-hand corner, and closes it again, sees that it's closed properly. And that is a really good way of making sure that at least the very, very basic functioning of your application as an integrated piece of software is working as you have intended it to be. GNOME and KDE have all the major applications implemented already. What we are missing is all the other desktop variants, and recently we figured out that blends might be a very good use case for that as well. I cannot do that alone. It's a lot of work. That's why I need all of you. If you want to do something like that, write to one of the mailing lists, Debian Live, Debian QA, and thank you for your future support of an even better Debian.
We on? Okay. My name is Philip Hans. I do some of the OpenQA stuff as well. Recently, I've been wanting to do some code coverage stuff for shell scripts that are part of Debian installer. So I'm using kconf to generate the coverage. And it turns out you can get GitLab, so Salsa, to show you things about how your code coverage is. Actually on there. There we are. So if you look at the documentation, it looks like GitLab does code coverage as sort of gives you the impression that it's all one thing, but it's actually 2 completely unrelated systems, and they use the word coverage sort of interchangeably. One of them, if you're putting it, specifying this in the Salsa CI YAML file, you put this coverage thing into one of your jobs with a pattern that it looks in the log of your job, and if it finds that, it will work out how much code coverage happened. And the other thing is that you upload an XML file that contains all the line-by-line coverage. And if you get one of those working, it has no effect on whether you've got the other one working. So you think hey, we're going to get the other thing? No, that's not true at all. So first I'll look at the overall coverage and badges that you can get. So this is a YAML file. You add that one line, or whatever pattern happens to match your coverage tool. There's quite a lot of them. Then you somehow persuade it to generate that. For my usage, the actual coverage data is in a JSON file, so I'm using JQ to generate that bit of text, you can see, which when you look at your job, you'll find that that's the JQ call that I was just pointing at. That generates this percentage for the job that's just run, and if it's all working, you then get this coverage thing in the job's data. That means that GitLab now knows about the percentage of coverage that you've got. So if that's working, then you can set up a badge where you point at this SVG thing as the badge image URL, and you can put variable bits in it. And then you can also specify a link that links to the artifacts that contain the report that's got all the detail in it. So once you've done that, you get this is the setup bit. You can see the badge in the middle, just so that you can actually click on that and it works. That then turns up here, and that's on the front page of the repo. And the other thing you do is you set up a report that gets uploaded. You somehow generate, KCOV actually generates something that GitLab doesn't like, so I have to munge it with that. That ends up generating this, which is you only see it in a merge request, and the merge request gets the green and red bits. So like that red bit there indicates that you haven't covered that line. Okay. How long have I got? About a minute. Okay, I can actually click on something. So, so that's the badge. So if the merge request I could show you, but it's you've seen that. So if you click on that one, then you end up getting to go to this font's tiny, isn't it? Yeah. That's your coverage report somewhere, and I think I'm done.
Okay, so last year I came to the talk and I told you the status of tag to upload, which is thing to let you upload a Debian package simply by signing and pushing a git tag. And then some robot will do all the rest of the work, including building source package and binary packages. And last year, this was kind of stuck. This year, it has been unstuck. So this is the current status. So we had a big discussion earlier in the year that was quite hard work. 1,000 messages or so on Debian project, I think it was, or Debian Vote. No, it was Debian Vote, wasn't it? Yes. So that was all deeply hard work, but we have got an outcome that it appears everybody is able to live with. We've had to write a weird thing in our code base, and FTP master are going to have to do a slightly weird thing at their end, but that is the kind of compromise we've settled on, and it doesn't compromise any of our key design goals, and it seems to be okay with FTP master too, so hooray. Since then, Sean and I have been very hard at work. We have taken the to-do list items from Russ Albury's security review, and we've been incorporating them into the code. We've been souping up our tests. Sean has been doing most of that. We've been writing the new mini git tag thing that is there to support FTP masters needs. I have been mostly writing the service manager, which didn't exist in 2019 and was basically the missing piece because we didn't know like what shape the service would need to be. So I've more or less finished that. We are currently doing finishing touches to everything. We've got, there's a list of outstanding bugs, but I thought I'd show you a screenshot from one of my test cases. So this is going to be the front page of the Tag to Upload Service Manager, and it will show you, there'll be pages here which will show you the progress of like, here was your tag received and how's it doing and did it fall over in a heap. This, as I say, this is not a demo, this is a screenshot of a test case, but it's a pretty realistic test case and I've got pretty good test coverage. We may or may not manage to get this deployed this year. But I expect that we will be opening it to general availability sometime next year. So there obviously we'll have to have a kind of beta period when people who we know and don't mind some very rough edges will try it out. And then gradually we'll open that up wider and wider. So currently we very recently over the past few days sent a message to DSA saying, here is kind of in detail what we think we need, and we are expecting to have a considerably more detailed conversation with DSA about exactly, how that is all going to work. But progress is happening, so thank you very much. So I think I've got like time for half a question.
Which one was more tougher, the mailing list or making the code?
The mailing list was much worse. The code's been fun, right? Thank you.
Thanks for the lightning talks, folks. Next up at 2 o'clock is Simon. Right, go and chat amongst yourselves for a while. Go and get a coffee, and we'll see you again shortly.